They approached with the purpose of leaving you in a state of utter disarray. The thing that they did not foresee was your unchanging self-worth and the calm power that you possess. In a shocking turn of events, it was their heart that broke, while yours stayed whole, forcing them to face the realities that they had been trying to avoid. Currently, they are going through a profound awakening, and the person whom they stupidly misjudged has left an indelible mark on their lives. Tonight, right now, you are standing on the brink of a cosmic revelation. The cosmos is passing away in mysterious ways, and they are all happening right now. You had been designated, selected, and targeted with surgical precision from across a packed room before you even knew their name. They had done all of this before you even knew their name. Each and every vulnerable fracture in your armor, as well as every weak area that they may later exploit, was being calculated by those eyes as they latched onto yours. You were not selected at random or by accident. Rather, you were chosen on purpose as their next conquest in a long-sordid history of emotional devastation. Make no mistake about it, their sophisticated fingers rushed out to grab you like a spider on its way to its next meal, already drooling at the prospect of your unavoidable demise. Someone looked into you. They watched how you went through the world with that open heart, that genuine smile, and in their warped mind, they thought, perfect. Another one who still believes in love. Another fool to add to my collection. Oh, how their lips curled in anticipation. Their words had been practiced, their touch had been measured, and their vulnerability had been exactly timed. They had performed this dance a great number of times before. Their plan for destruction was immaculate, and their method for destroying your sense of self-worth had already been drafted before you had even spoken your first word to them. They had created the mask in such a way that it was so meticulously made to fit exactly what you were looking for. The ideal reflection of your innermost aspirations, your most cherished dreams. It was a mirage that was designed to draw you into the desert of their emptiness until you were parched and pleading for a drop of their affection. On the other hand, what they did not anticipate, what utterly took them by surprise, was the fact that you were not like the other people. Because you were carrying ancient knowledge, they were unable to identify it. There was a power that they had never experienced before that you held. They believed that they were the ones who were hunting, and that you were the ones who were being hunted. They believed that you would fall apart like a house of cards at the first sign of their intention to retreat, as if you were another damaged soul who was left wondering what went wrong. They anticipated that you would become another notch on their belt. However, the universe was playing a cosmic joke on them because, while they were arranging your emotional execution, the cosmos was organizing their awakening. You were the catalyst, the divine hammer that would shatter their illusions for all time. This was not some inexperienced person attempting to manipulate you for the first time. Make no mistake about what you were dealing with or what you were dealing with. This individual was a maestro of psychological warfare who had spent years honing their technique. They were a master of the dark arts of mental predation. Their strategy was nothing short of superb in its calculated accuracy, as evidenced by the manner in which they researched their targets, your particular love language, your personal scars, and your individual insecurities before making their move. Not a single thing happened by chance. Every single text message, compliment, and chance encounter was carefully planned out in order to undermine your defenses. Keep an eye on how they function. The first phase is the mirroring phase, in which they suddenly share all of your interests, desires, and dreams with you, as if by some sort of magical occurrence. You name a rare book, and they not only read it, but also offer insightful insights that match exactly with your points of view. You love obscure French cinema? What a coincidence! They've been obsessed with it since childhood. Because they have already started rewiring your brain with dopamine hits of validation, the mathematical improbability of such perfect match never registers in your mind. The next type of love bombing is the overwhelming cascade of attention that makes you feel like the center of the universe. This includes conversations that take place late at night and continue until dawn, messages that flood your phone from morning until night, and grandiose declarations of connection that appear to be too good to be true because they are. They say things like, "I've never met anyone like you before. It feels like we've known each other in previous lives." These are words that are designed to create a false sense of destiny. It is then the strategic vulnerability, those carefully selected confessions that make you believe you are seeing their authentic self. These confessions include the childhood trauma that they have never shared with anyone else, the tearful revelation of past heartbreaks that position them as the wounded one, the one who needs your healing touch, all while concealing the broken hearts they have left behind. What about their history? Imagine the stories that would be told if their prior victims were able to come together and create a council. The similar patterns were carried out with mechanical precision. The same sweet nothings murmured in various ears. The same promises made and broken with cold deficiency. And the same discard phase carried out without experiencing any sorrow. Their karma gathered like dark matter, which is thick and invisible, but exerts gravitational influence on everything in their orbit. Once they had extracted what they required, which included adulation, validation, and emotional energy that was sucked like vampire feed. Despite this, they continue to be oblivious to it, floating through life with the notion that they are untouchable. Each shattered heart that they leave behind just serves to cement their conviction of superiority, as well as their belief that emotional consequences are reserved for less capable people. This cycle proceeded without interruption for years, even decades, with their cosmic debt accumulating tremendously with each person that was killed, each trust that was violated, and each precious link that was profaned for the sake of recreational activity. Until they came across you, there was a noticeable change from the very beginning of the situation. As soon as they got closer, you felt a surge of recognition, like an electric current running through your spine. Despite the fact that your conscious mind may have been enthralled by their allure, something ancient stirred in your cellular memory. It was a primitive warning system that was awakened by the predator that was there among you. During the time when they were smiling, your intuition shouted and your spirit recoiled as they murmured those sweet words. Danger, it whispered, with each of their prepared compliments, with every lie they murmured when exposing their purportedly exclusive vulnerabilities. This inner voice, which you had disregarded in previous relationships, suddenly became tremendous and impossible to ignore all of a sudden. They utilized their typical arsenal, which included the lingering touches, the intense eye contact that was supposed to create a false sense of intimacy, and the smart compliments that targeted your greatest fears. Yet rather than melting you, you felt yourself growing stronger. You realized that rather than being entranced by their performance, you found yourself viewing it with a peculiar detachment, as if you were seeing an actor whose skills you could suddenly see through. You were hesitant to answer their call because of anything that happened when they called. You didn't feel any sense of rush to answer when they texted you, when they increased their pursuit, as they constantly did Whenever they detected resistance, you did not feel flattered, but rather suffocated by their intensity, which had previously ensnared a great number of people before you. That did nothing but drive you further away. Suddenly, the moment arrived that would forever alter everything. A rehashed line that you had heard before, an anecdote that contradicted an earlier one, or even the flicker of calculating that you glimpsed in their eyes when they thought you weren't looking could have been the cause of their performance failing. Whatever the cause was, the veil fell away entirely, and you did something that no one had ever done before. You walked away without drawing any attention to yourself and without providing any explanation. You have distanced yourself from places where they could mistakenly come upon you, you have blocked their number, and you have denied their invitations. There was a casual indifference on your part as you shifted the subject whenever their name was brought up by mutual friends. When they sent communications through other people, you received them with a courteous lack of interest. Every one of your boundaries was a brick in an impenetrable wall that they were unable to climb or get around. Every one of your rejections served as a mirror, causing them to see their genuine reflection rather than the inflated image that they had worked so hard to create for themselves. Every one of your pauses was a sermon that was more powerful than any allegation that could have been made. You were able to see through their veneer, not only to the manipulation they were engaging in, but also to the wounded child who lay behind the master manipulator. You were able to discern the void that they were frantically attempting to fill with verification from the outside world. You were able to recognize the fear that was the driving force behind their urge to exert control, and as a result of this realization, you started deconstructing the very basis upon which their fake identity was built. What transpired after that was nothing less than the manifestation of cosmic justice through your acts. Your rejection was not merely another door that was shut in their face. Rather, it was a seismic rupture in the entire fabric of their existence. Never before had they experienced such an impenetrable immunity to their charms, and never before had they considered themselves to be so completely impotent to influence the perceptions of another individual. Their disguises, their strategies, and their carefully created persona had never been so thoroughly exposed as they were on this particular occasion. They were finally confronted by an adversary that they were unable to beat, deceive, or influence. The universe had finally taken action. They were struck by this knowledge with the force of a celestial hammer, which shattered the fragile crystal that was their ego into 1,000 brilliant pieces. Something that had been dormant for a long time began to stir beneath the rubble, as their ego thrashed in its death throes and as their carefully created self-image began to collapse. It was the first delicate shoots of real self-awareness that were pushing through the cracks of their broken identity. They groped for any link to you, any way to reinsert themselves into your consciousness, and any strategy to restore their position of control during the subsequent period of desperation, which was magnificent in its intensity. It was like a person who was drowning and clinging to water. This was the beginning of the onslaught of attempts to make direct contact. Messages that vacillated wildly between self-pitying vulnerability and thinly veiled hostility. Just checking in texts at 2 in the morning. Emails that dissected what went wrong between you. Voicemails that began casually and ended in raw emotional outbursts. Each one met with your silence, a silence that echoed in their minds like a scream. After unsuccessful attempts at direct approaches, they resorted to surveillance. Your social media accounts became their obsession. Every post was researched for hidden meanings, and every photo was analyzed for signals about your mental state. Questions such as, Are you happy without them? Are you suffering with someone new? Grip them like a fever. As time went on, they started showing up at areas that they knew you visited, such as the coffee shop you mentioned once in passing, the bookshop you tagged in a post several months ago, and the park that was close to your apartment. Each of these coincidental encounters was meticulously organized to look to be spontaneous. Every contact was crafted with the intention of re-establishing their significance within your universe. Their inquiries became more precise, more urgent, and more evident in their true goal with each conversation that they had with you. They sought out to shared contacts in an effort to gather information about you while disguising their desperate curiosity as casual interest. "Oh, how is your friend doing? Just wondering." They investigated your new passions and connections, making an effort to modify them and bend them once more into what they believed you want. However, they failed to recognize that what repelled you was this chameleon-like aspect, which was the absence of a genuine self. The truth, however, was hidden beneath all of this frenzied activity. They were unable to confront the fact that you had caused an awakening. Their pursuit of you was something that they were not prepared for. In addition to the fact that they had lost control or suffered a loss of pride, it was also about the scary void that you had exposed within them. The void that they had spent their entire lives trying to escape, which had ultimately been filled with the emotional energy of other people, was now staring back at them, demanding that they accept it. They went to the last weapon in their armory, the slander campaign, which was a desperate attempt to dominate the narrative that they could no longer directly influence. When all attempts at reconnection failed, when every manipulative ploy met with your unbreakable wall of indifference, they resorted to the smear campaign. In this rewritten history, they started fabricating a new account of the events that had occurred, much like a skilled storyteller spinning fiction. You played the role of the manipulator. You were the unstable one. You were the cruel player who exploited them and then abandoned them. This reversal would have been ridiculous if it hadn't been carried out with such conviction, yet it was performed with such conviction. They sent carefully edited excerpts of your exchanges, which were devoid of any of the existing context. Minor disagreements were blown out of proportion and turned into huge fights. They changed their pursuit of you into your pursuit of them while they were pursuing you. They portrayed themselves as the helpless victim who narrowly avoided being influenced by your toxic influence because of the friendships they shared. Their expressions of performative melancholy conveyed the fact that they continued to care about you despite the manner in which you dealt with these new pals. You were referred to as a cautionary story of someone who is incapable of handling true intimacy with possible love partners. They even mentioned you as the crazy ex who couldn't let go, but they never mentioned their own desperate attempts to retain connected. The narrative spread through social circles like a virus, designed to accomplish multiple objectives simultaneously: to salvage their damaged reputation, to preemptively discredit anything you might say about them, and most importantly, to provoke a response from you, any response that would break your silence and re-engage your energy. What they failed to know, however, was that with each intricate deception, each distortion, and each performance of victimhood, they were just digging themselves further into the identical inauthenticity that had first repelled you. This was the underlying cause of their inability to connect with you. With each fabrication, the gap between their apparent self and their true self became wider, making it increasingly difficult for them to connect with one another in a genuine manner. And despite everything that was going on, you kept your power by keeping a distance and being silent. You came to the realization that participating in their story would only serve to perpetuate the precise dynamic that you had managed to escape. You had an innate understanding that the energy source that they badly required to maintain their fake self was your affirmation, your attention, and even your fury. During the period of silence that followed their unsuccessful attempts to regain your attention, something deep started to take shape within them. Finally, the emptiness that they had spent their entire lives trying to escape ended up catching up with them. They had filled themselves with the affirmation, adoration, and emotional energy of other people. And in that void, the seeds of change discovered a location that was rich in nutrients. It began as a source of discomfort, a nagging itch that was present beneath the surface of their consciousness and that could not be alleviated by any diversion. The questions you planted simply by walking away started to sprout, sending roots deep into their psyche. Why did your rejection hurt so much more than others? Why couldn't they simply move on to the next target, as they always had before? What made you different? Slowly, painfully, the truth emerged from the shadows. It was not about you at all. Rather, it was about what you reflected back to them, which was the emptiness, the manipulation, and the underlying dishonesty of their approach to human interaction. It was the first time that they had the opportunity to view themselves through eyes that were not clouded by need or connection, and the clarity of the vision was terrible. It became impossible to ignore the patterns, which included the same manipulative strategies that were used with mechanical precision, the same shallow ties that were made and then discarded, and the same emptiness that awaited them after each successful victory. You had not only rejected them, but you had rejected their entire way of life, deemed it unworthy of your energy, and as a result, you had pushed them to question the merit of their way of life in general. The next thing that happened was that they had dark nights of the soul, which consisted of spending hours addressing memories that they had deliberately avoided. They realized the anguish that they had caused, possibly for the first time, and they felt true regret, which was not confused by self-interest. It was not as a testament to their power that they began to recognize the trail of injured souls that they had left behind. Rather, it was evidence of their brokenness. The false ego started to fall apart as a result of the weight of this new understanding. The charismatic facade that had come to serve them so well felt like it was becoming increasingly difficult to keep up. It was as if they were speaking a language that they had suddenly grown embarrassed to know, and the scripts and strategies that had previously flowed naturally in their tongues now felt foreign to them. They started to change before they ever made a conscious decision to do so. They found themselves hesitating in the face of the familiar lies, pausing in front of the manipulative texts, and doubting the temptation to establish a false sense of intimacy. Before making an effort to fill it with the energy of another person, they began to recognize the void that existed within themselves. They started to understand the distinction between creating a relationship and gaining control. When they were alone, they found themselves thinking about you, but not with the compulsive urge to recover control. Rather, they were filled with a peculiar and unaccustomed sense of appreciation. Having demonstrated to them the underlying failure of their approach to relationships, you had accomplished something that no one else could have done. It was because of you that they were forced to face the emptiness that they had spent their entire lives avoiding. You have been permanently etched into their soul's memory, not as a conquest, not as a target, not as another interchangeable face in their collection of admirers, but as the catalyst who fundamentally altered the trajectory of their life. This is a sacred truth that you must comprehend regarding the impact that you have had on them. In their minds, you are now a landmark that represents both the past and the future. There is a difference between the person they were before they came into contact with your boundaries and the person they became after they confronted them. Two different lives exist for them. The one they led before your rejection shattered their illusions, and the one they are currently living through the pieces of their previous existence. Your personal BC and AD serve as the dividing line in their psychological chronology. You are their own BC and AD. They may try to persuade themselves that they have moved on. They may engage into new relationships. They may seek to employ their previous strategies. And they may momentarily revert to familiar patterns of emotional manipulation. But something has fundamentally changed. No longer do the scripts flow as effortlessly as they once did. There is less of a comfortable fit for the masks, because now there is a voice within them. A voice that sounds suspiciously similar to yours, questioning each inauthentic gesture, calling out each manipulative approach, and demanding a degree of honesty that they are still learning to deliver. The emptiness does not feel as readily disregarded as it did before. Even if years go by without they communicating with you, even if they establish a life that appears to be detached from the lesson you gave them, your influence will continue to be indelible. You were the one who broke the cycle. You were the one who refused to play the game on their terms. You were the one who walked away undamaged when everyone else had departed wounded. These are the things that people know with perfect confidence when they are in times of genuine self-reflection. You should be aware of the fact that your authority is unquestionable, since you have never required their approval, their attention, or their energy in order to feel full. Not only were you complete before they occurred, but you were also whole after they had passed. Furthermore, this completeness was precisely what they were unable to regulate, could not lessen, and could not possess control over. The cosmic irony is exquisite. They chose you because they believed that you would be another simple acquisition, another source of narcissistic supply, and another momentary distraction from the emptiness that they feel within themselves. In its place, you turned out to be their most valuable instructor, the one they mourned the most, and strangely, the person they gained the most significance from. They discovered their own broken openness in the process of trying to break your heart. Instead, they discovered that they were broken open to the possibility of genuine connection, genuine emotion, and genuine intimacy, broken open to the very vulnerability that they had spent their entire lives trying to avoid, broken open to the truth of who they are beneath the carefully constructed facade. And in that broken open, agonizing, and captivating metamorphosis, they discovered the first true connection they had ever experienced. The connection to their own truth, which was sparked by your refusal to accept anything less than the truth. In addition to winning the game, you were the one who designed it. Because of the fact that you completely altered the course of the game, they will never, ever forget you.